Kumlen Ablat Gemara, Chedesh, second day of Chedesh Kislev, and Shabbos. We're up to Daf Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph. And we're just giving different examples when he says that this should be also to me koinim, like a carbon, and he uses different references. Who is he referring to? Because remember, when it comes to Nedarim, we follow basically Lashon B'nai Adam, what people mean. So we're up to the Mishnah here, about 10 lines, about 15 lines on top of the page. Koinim, he says that there should be also to me like a carbon. I don't want to have any benefit from Bnei Noach. Who is included in Bnei Noach? Mutter b'Yisrael. Yidden are no longer called Bnei Noach, even though we are descendants of Noach. Everybody says Noach, but we're no longer referred to as Bnei Noach. We're referred to as Bnei Yisrael. But he's forbidden to have any benefit from a goy because goyim are all called Bnei Noach. Says the Gemara of Yisrael, Minofi Mekal Bnei, but we're also Bnei Noach. Why doesn't Bnei Noach include everybody? The Gemara, keeping the Ikdish Avram, once Avram became sanctified by the Eibishter, then Iskaru al Shmei. We are all called Bnei Avram. We're no longer called Bnei Nech. The Mishnah Melech and Parashat Drachim and Zalol Arichis and Bishop Engel and others, whether the Yidden had the status of Bnei Noach till Matan Torah, or as soon as Avram was already around, they're no longer Bnei Noach. Regardless, and the Ramban at the end of Parshas Emor brings a machlekes between him and the Chachmei Tzarfas, whether the Yidden have a din of Bnei Yisrael prior to Matan Torah. But regardless, after Matan Torah, definitely, even though it became retrospective, whatever we came from Bnei Avram was activated after Matan Torah. So nevertheless, we're called Bnei Avram and not called Bnei Noach. So the Mishnah continues further on this theme. What about if he says, I don't have any benefit from Avram's descendants, also you would think that if you have any not from the Arabs. No. Also be Yisrael, he's only referring to Yidden, Bnei Avram, and not to Goyim. Says the Gemara, what about the Yishmael? The pasuk says that only in Yitzchak will I say it's called Zer Avram. But Esav, what about Esav? Esav is definitely, comes from Yitzchak. Yitzchak, all it says in the pasuk is even the Kol Zera. So Yitzchak had two descendants. He had Avram, he had Yaakov, and he had Esav. So maybe Bnei Esav. So he says here, Yitzchak, not all the descendants of Yitzchak, only Esav. So based on this, Mishnah and others have a big question on the Rambam. Rambam holds that Bnei Keturah are Chayiv and Bris Milah, because they are also considered Zer Avram. So why does the Gemara say that Zer Avram only refers to Yidden? Why doesn't it refer to also to Bnei Keturah? And one of the answers given is that when you make a neder, you want to have some certainty. And because the Rambam writes that today, Bnei Keturah, after Sancherim came and mixed up all the nations of the world, we don't know who Bnei Keturah is. So if you say Bnei Keturah is us, who is Bnei Keturah? Who's going to be us? So when you make a neder, you want to know exactly what you ask. So therefore, we assume that the neder is not going to include people who are a suffix. Okay. In Mishnah it is. Because I guess there's a whole discussion. What about Gerim? A Gerim called Zera Avram. The Rosh says here clearly on the bottom of the page. I'll just quote you what he says here. If I can find it, he says on the Mishnah, Osabi Yisrael, the Gerim Nami Bechal Zera Avram. Says here about 8 lines at the bottom of the page. He says clearly the Gerim are included. The Chol Shemre HaTorah Bechal Zareh. On the one hand, he includes all the Gerim. Then he says Kol Shemre HaTorah. So there's a whole discussion. What about somebody who's a mummer? A Yid who's a mummer. He calls Zer Avram, and they don't really base it on this Rosh. But the Rosh says he says Shemre HaTorah. He doesn't say Kol Yisraelim. He says Kol Shemre HaTorah. What is the Rosh trying to say? Doesn't say Kol Chiyuve in Mitzvah HaTorah, Shemre HaTorah. So somebody who's not Shemre HaTorah mitzvahs is what? Is not Zer Avram. It's a very strong statement to make. There's a very strong statement to make. In fact, recently they published a letter from the Rebbe where he berates those Rabbanim who say that anybody who's reform or conservative is not Jewish. And he says, the Rambam says every Yid is a Yid. That's why Yichel Gerish says if you beat them, they give a get, it's all right. Because every Yid is a Yid. Doesn't matter if you could do Avedas, doesn't take away from the fact that they're Yid. So what does the Rosh mean when he says Shemre HaTorah B'chal? So in the discussion. But what does that Avram Bagadim? There's a big machlekes of Yehuda Chachamim whether they chayv and bekurim and they make a bracha or not, because they can say Oresh Satali, or can they say Avaseinu? How can they say Avaseinu? So the answer Rabbi Yehuda says because Av Haman Goyim, Avram is of all the Goyim. By the way, I can't remember who asked. That explains Avram. What was Yitzchak Yaakov? We say Avaseinu. Okay, Avram they can say Av Haman Goyim. How can they say Yitzchak Yaakov and Avaseinu? Where they Avaseinu? So they want to answer that you must say that Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov are considered one, even though the three others are considered one. And if you're the Zer Avram, and you reckon Zer Avram, then the Chemeli you're Zer Yaakov. Okay, let's continue. Next mission. Here you have to have a couple of it. It says, She'eini nenemi Yisrael. I don't have any benefit from a Yid. I don't have any benefit from that Yid. Can I do business with him? He says, yes, in a way where you don't benefit from him. How do you do business with somebody you don't benefit? If you overpay for goods. And just before we begin, there's the Gemara is going to talk about that 3 kinds of sellers. There are sellers who are desperate sellers. And that's one group of sellers. And in a case where the guy is a desperate seller, then the seller is happy when there's a sale. He needs the money. He's urgent, needs the money. Then you have a normal case. There's a seller, there's a buyer. So they're both happy. The seller got what he wanted, money, and the buyer got what he wanted, which is this particular object. Then you have sellers where there's a high demand and very few people have it. When masks were around a couple of years ago, nobody had masks, so nobody had the rat test, whatever it is. There were big, that's high demand. In that case, the buyer is the one who gets all pleasure. The seller doesn't get who he sells to. He has a million people out there ready to pay. So in that case, it's the buyer who has all the hana. So again, it's called charifa. If it's a sale charifa, it means high demand, and the buyer is the one who has all the hana. If it's a normal sale, they both have hana, the buyer and the seller. And if it's something where there's no demand and the seller is desperate, then the seller is the one who has hana, not the buyer. But that's only if it's shava b'shava, you're selling for the normal price. But if you ever sell something for more than the price, doesn't matter which of these 3 categories it is, if it's more than the price, then the buyer feels cheated, doesn't have an It's the seller who has he got extra money. In a case where you undersell it, you get paid back less than what you should, then the buyer is one who's happy, he got a good deal, and the seller walks home very unhappy. Okay, that's the Hagdama to understand the following Gemara. So Amar Shmuel, sorry, let's finish. And then I don't have any hanov from a yid. So what can if I ever want to buy something from him, I want to handle with him, I can. But I got to pay excessive amounts of money, much more than it's worth. So therefore, I'm not having any hanov from him. If I want to sell an object, I have to sell less than the value, less than what it's normally sold for. So I'm losing money. So this way, there's no hanov. I'm not having any hanov from this person. What about the other way around? The say for Shish Yisrael, I don't want that yid or any yid to have any hanov from me. Can I deal with Eden? Is like if I buy, I don't have to know. If I'm going to buy something from him, I have to pay less than it's worth. The pachas, so that therefore they have no enough from me. If I ever sell them anything, I charge them too much. So that the Mishnah says, which is interesting, why the Mishnah has to say that. The ain't shaming life. If you can find anybody who is actually going to listen to you and want to handle with you in such a way, why in the world the Mishnah has to add that? I don't know. But then the Mishnah says, if you say she'ein nena lehen v'hein li. If I say I don't want you to have enough of me, and I don't have enough of me, so none of these, you can't deal in any of these ways. In that case, the only one you can have enough of is going. In fact, it's such an obvious thing. What does the Mishnah have to say it for? So that I want to say the chiddush in the Mishnah is sometimes you make a neder which is impossible. If you say that I'm not going to sleep for next week, remember we had more than 3 days. It's shoved. You can go ahead and you give your malchus straight away by yachad because it's impossible anyway. So we would have thought that if you say you're not going to have any hanov from and the yid won't have enough of me, I won't have enough of yid. That's a net which is impossible. So we answer, no, it is possible. You have an alternative. Deal with goyim. Don't deal with yid. So I think Rabbi Shmuel says halach, and then we're going to go back to our Mishnah. See reference to our Mishnah. Shmuel says halakayach. We have different levels of shemim depending on what my benefit is. Then I have a certain responsibility. So if I have no benefit, for example, I'm doing the guy a favor, then I have no responsibilities. I'm doing him a favor, so therefore I'm not chayav if it gets stolen or lost or anything else. And if there's sheer negligence, in fact, there's a big machlekes Rishonim why you pay for negligence as well. Do you pay for negligence because it's a din of shmira, or actually I'm a mazik? Nothing to do with shmira. As a shayman, I'm potter completely. I'm doing you a favor. Why am I paying for negligence? That Rambam says because you're a mazik. So that's Shemim where I'm getting paid. or for something that I'm therefore I'm having benefit from the object, I have more responsibilities. If it gets stolen or lost, I'm chayiv. But an einis, I'm not. A shayil kol hana shaloi. What does the lender have from a shayil? Nothing. The shayil is the one who gets all the hana. So there's in that case, the shayil is responsible for everything. Almost everything. Says the Gemara Shmuel, if I go ahead to a store and I buy something from a tradesman, whatever, from a craftsman, and a levaka, I want to take it home. I want to check it out, try for 24 hours. Venenis, and while I was in my house, in my possession, an accident happened. Chayiv, I'm chayiv. Why am I chayiv? I'm like to show you why. Because what does the lender have from this right now? Garnished. I didn't pay him a penny. And I have all the benefit. I have the hana that I can bring it home and test it out. So I'm like a shayil. Different chayiv. Alma kasavadi holds. So who has the hana here? Hanos lakechi. Because if the seller also has hana here, then my level of responsibility should be reduced. Should instead of being also for einstein, should be on chayiv baveda. The fact that I'm chayiv for einstein means kol hana shalai. So in other words, it seems to me whenever there's a sale, who's the one who has the most pleasure from the sale? Not more. All the pleasure is the lekech. So that's a question. Tonight, we looked at our Mishnah.
Has the pleasure, the potential
But that's not tangible pleasure. It's nothing. I have nothing from it. Tomorrow, when you say if I buy it, maybe retrospective. But now that's not coming back to me. I got no pleasure. Tonight, we learned. So interesting. If you're walking in a store and your hand by mistake moves, and you break something on the shelf, who's responsible? It was nice. Then we learned She'eni Nenemi Yisrael says Mishnah, if I will have no hana from that year, meeting moiche, so the only way I could deal with them is moiche if I sell them under the price. So therefore, I'm not having hana. I will shove it, but if I sell them for the normal price, why? I don't know if I know why, because I'm getting hana, but I'm the moiche. You Shmuel just said kol hana shlo is the look. Right? Anyone understands that every time there's a sale, it's the lekech. He got the object. More important than getting the money is the object. Therefore, he got the object. That's the full hana. So even shava, I should not be able to deal with the person because I'm getting the moiche is getting the full hana. And I said I don't have any hana from the yid. Well, no. I said no. Sorry, I'm going to leave the question. The hana is lekech. If you tell me every sale who gets the hana, the lekech, then if you shava, then you should be allowed to. And to the Gemara, Masnisin, our Mishnah talking about where there's a desperate sale. When there's a desperate sale because nobody's buying it, Masvina the Rami Alape, a sale that's sitting on his face. In other words, it's like an expression on it's a little expression on his face that he's desperate for any buyer. In such a case, if he makes a sale, forget about making profit, he makes a sale, shava b'shava. He's in this case, the Meicher is happy. That's why in this case, the only way the Meicher can sell it to the Lekech is the only way to make it if he sells it under the price. So then even if it's desperate, but you just lost money. In case, if you're talking about a case where Ramel Ape, a desperate seller, the first part is if he said, I won't have any enough Mayid, it says here, like, hey, if I buy from him, I got to pay more money. If I pay more money, then that maybe if I pay the normal amount, then I'm, what do you call it? Then I'm so first of all it says you shouldn't pay more money. If I'm a desperate if he what do you call it? If he's a desperate seller, then if I'm a desperate seller, what's the case in this case here? How do you explain that? I shouldn't pay for it. So we see that I'm having hana from him and he's having it off. What do you call it? If it's shava b'shava, he's a desperate seller. Why am I having enough? The Meicher has all the knowledge. It says in the first part of the Mishnah, I shouldn't buy from him. If it's shava, because if it's b'shava b'shava, b'shava b'shava, if it's a desperate seller, then he's having all that, not me, because nobody really wants it. It's like I did him a favor buying it. So I should ask number one. Number two, aim a safer. Look at the next half of the Mishnah. It says, he's told them that I don't having enough of me. So if I don't have enough of me, what do? I like I pay less than the amount. So therefore, he's not having enough for me. Or I'm selling him more than amount. Now the Ibis did about if it's a desperate sale. I feel a shava b'shava. If it's a desperate sale, that even if I'm paying him the what do you call it? Even if I'm buying it, if I'm selling it, even if I'm selling it for even, this buyer has no enough because he can buy it anyway. What do you get from me? I'm a desperate seller because nobody wants to buy it. There's no demand. But I answer the safer. This case from Azvina Chadifa. We're talking about here where there's a desperate buyer, but there's a desperate buyer because everybody wants it. Very few people have it, so therefore you're giving him hana if you're selling it for shava b'shava because you couldn't buy it anywhere else. When you have to sell the keva pachas, if so, why did it say I have to sell it to him for less? I buy from the less. I feel a shava b'shava, even if it's shava b'shava, he has no hana from it because he can sell it anywhere. He has no specific enough for me. Elohim answers, Maslis and Al Misha talking about Zvina Mitzvah, not a desperate seller, not a desperate buyer, normal case. Normal case, then shava b'shava is they're both having hana from you. That's why it's us on both sides. And Shmuel says, where if you take it from a you're fully responsible because the kol hana shalai, the entire hana is the buyer. I'm talking about a different case. He's talking about Zvina Chadifa. He's talking about where there's a hot commodity, hot idea, limited supply. So therefore, in that case, the buyer has all the hana. Tani goes from Shmuel. If you buy kalim from a merchant, you want to send it to your in-laws' house, and you want to see whether they're happy. They're not happy with it. But you said to me, if they like it, I'll pay for it. If not, I'll pay you for the hana that you gave me, allowed me to have it for 24 hours. If he had if the illness took place while he was taking it to his in-laws' house, is what do you call it? Is chayiv. Why is he chayiv? We treat him like a shoyl. It's called a shalai, and that's what everybody asks on this Rashi here. Rashi says, Rashi now gets the right? It's like you're paying for it, but here no. The fact that you're allowing me to bring it home, which is hard to understand because it's not a paper. There's only pays for Gneva Vaveda. In fact, there's no machlekes. I would agree. Seichel is the machlekes. If a seichel is considered like a neisah sacha or like a shoyl, but a neisah sacha you get paid, and I'm getting paid. I'm getting the hana that you trust me with this object. So Gomer Maksha, is this a chiddush Rashi here that a neisah sacha can also sometimes be elevated to the level of a shoyl where he has extra hana, because he has something personally. You trusted me, and so on. Or not.
You say it's just a conditional sale. At that point, before it gets to the in-laws, it's all a conditional sale. Because if they're happy, then he's really buying it from them. So technically,
no, because what happens if we don't buy it? You still keep the money that I gave you. I give you $5
for that time.
So there's not going to sale. So $5 I gave you was for the time. So what's the sale? What's the
renting it and then I'm buying it after?
Something like that. That's right. Turning into a sale or not? Yeah. But the Chazara Potter, returning your Potter, why? Because in fact, there's no hana anymore because the in-laws don't want it, so there's no hana anymore. He's like now he's like a neisah sach. So this what mean now? But the way Rashi learned neisah sach before as well. So it's either the mistake in Rashi, or like someone say, or there's a chiddush in Rashi that a neisah sach is extra hana becomes like a shayl.
You have a replacement with neisah sach by Chazar?
By halicha.
But
in the Gemara it says. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So who's Hasidah? There was this mekla. There was what do you call? Well, I said substitute in English. I forgot. There was a broker. The shakol chamra lezvuni. He took a donkey to try to sell it for this person. Then obviously get his commission. And he could. Oh, he's a middleman. And he couldn't make the sale. But as we bring it back to the owner, is this an accident occurred? Chamra with a donkey. Nachman said an oinus and you are potter. Now you're returning home. We just learned we said before that if you're returning it home, you have no longer any hana. Then you sachak with the sachak or or something, and if you potter for anything, why are you obligating this mekler, this middle person to be paid for the donkey? A broker is different than anybody else. The case of the chassan, once his in-laws said not interested, there's no sale anymore. He brings it home. A shatchin, every person that they see, they try to make a shidduch. Even on his way home, if he sees somebody there and he thinks he can make a deal, he'll deal. So it's not considered returning until he physically returns it into the guy's house possession. Even at the entrance of the house of the owner. That's what he does for a living. He's a professional middleman. Says the Gemara further. Okay, talking about different words, expressions that people mean. I ask everything. Bahano shani nenalareim. I don't have any benefit from someone who's areim. Literally, areim means uncircumcised. So do you mean literally uncircumcised? We had before there's different areim that were us in Kabbalah. As an example, somebody who makes echad machamisa. If let's say hemophiliac is prevalent in that family, you're not allowed to malin because it's dangerous. Are they included in areim, or is it more like a name, a euphemism, a noun, rather than a description? So mutter ba'arei Yisrael v'asa b'modem yechad. He's permitted with Yisrael, even though they might be an oral, but it's also by any goy. And even if the goyim are gemalit, circumcised, you not have enough for goy because that's how you refer to goyim as arelim, and for Yidden they're not referred to as arelim. And the Ram brings it out because it says in the pasuk, "Kol hagoyim arelim." All the goyim are arelim, so therefore, regardless, and surely there are some goyim are gemalit. And that bothered a lot of people because we have a rule, Rubik Kulay. In fact, there's a famous Taz where he says, why we say Kol and Kulay b'chveidecha, Sham davening, why redundant? So the Taz says, because we just say Kol oilam b'chveidecha, it would mean Roiv. 51% is also. I say Kol Kula, you mean 100%. So what's the right of a pasuk? Kol hagoyim arelim. Most goyim are arelim, but some are not arelim, and therefore maybe the din is that those. So the Ranzaraya, they try to understand when do we say Kol Rubik Kulay, and when do we say Kol not Rubik Kulay? Famous some say from Chubas we ask, so why do you have to have a revius wine in your becher? Say Rubik Kulay, have more than half a revius and you. So he says that Rubik Kulay is you have to have a Kulay, but if Raiv of it meets the standard, that's Rubik Kulay. But the Chatchila all you have is a Raiv, not Kulay, then it doesn't work. Otherwise, what's the whole idea of Shiurim in the Torah? What we say, Rubik Kulay. We don't do that. The Mishnah continues. I don't have any benefit from those who are circumcised. Also, even the Yisrael's oral is forbidden. Arla is generally referred to only to goyim. It's in the pasuk. Kol hagoyim arelim v'chol beit Yisrael arelim. So the Mishnah actually brings the pasuk Kol hagoyim arelim and v'chol beit Yisrael arelim. But it says another pasuk you bring which says it describes the plishti by Goliath. But it says in other pasuk it says pen tishmatla benois plishtim pen taloiza benois arelim. So you see that what all the non-Jews are called benois arelim. Talking about Arla, we're talking about all the Goyim Arla, we're talking about now just generally the Maila being circumcised and the Chsar Arla. Because that the Rebbe brings from the Rogachover that there's definitely 3 parts to the midst of Bismillah is the act of mouthing and the fact that you're no longer an Arla. So when you do a bris, you take away the Arla, you make a bris milah, and plus every minute that you are you're malak, you've makayim a mitzvah that you're not an arla. So here we're saying that mu'usa. First of all, we're going to break the mission 2 parts. There's mu'usa arla and there's gedayla mailas a bris. There's 2 different parts to it. One is the fact that we remove the arla, and the other part is the positive side of it, that there's a bris. Shenizganu b'rishayim. Rishayim are described in a disparaging way as an oral. So it says, all the goyim arelim. Charles says, now let's at the other side. That 13 brises were covenants, because in the Parsha by Yeder, where it talks about, we was told the mitzvah of bris milah, over there, when Avram was told mitzvah milah, 13 times it says the word bris in that little Parsha. The Rambam Pirsha Mishnah is bliss every time it says the word bris. And there, Milah is so great that it pushes away Shabbos. Chamura, Shabbos is so strict, and yet Milah pushes away. That Moshe was all his chusim he had. The only reason why he's about to be punished was Moshe couldn't delay but 1 hour. But when Moshe was coming to Mitzrayim, he was threatened to be killed because he didn't mala his child. So he's in the eye, despite all this chusim that Moshe Rabbeinu had. And the Yaimer, truth is hard to understand because there were no chusim then yet. He didn't go to Mitzrayim yet. He didn't do anything yet. He was on the way to Mitzrayim with his family. Rabbi Nechemya says, Gedele Mila maybe means that he already has because he's ready to do it. That already gives him all those chusim. Rabbi Nechemya just wanting to do it, which will be a powerful statement. If you want to do good things, you already have all those chuyas. Anyway, true, but it's the way it sounds like Kohl's. It's all in the Mishnah says. And the Milah is so great that it pushes away in the goyim. Problematic. You just said that Milah is so great it pushes away Shabbos, which is Isa Skila. So what's so great to push away the grain with Isa Lav? So what's Pshat? So the Pshat like this, perhaps. And someone will say this, that when we say Milah is Mutter on Shabbos, that Pshat is Dinah Shabbos, and Mitzvah of Milah pushes it away. Not Pshat at all. That the Torah says the V'yayim Hashmina Yim Tzar Los, it means that on Shabbos there is no Shabbos when it comes to Bris Milah. Your mitzvah didn't push anything away. There's no Shabbos. Shabbos says I remove myself completely so that you can go ahead and mala your child. But when it comes to the Goyim doesn't step aside. There we say Esed Lois. In fact, every time we use an example Esed Lois, we say Goyim Milah B'Tzaras. That's the example we give. So there, that's a chiddush that you have an aveda of removing the tzaras, but still the asay pushes it away, and that's the chiddush here. That is the doichalois of the goyim. Rebbe says, "Gedoyle Mila is no great. Shekol hamitzah she'as Avraham Avinu lanikar shalom ad shemol. Avraham Avinu was not considered whole until he circumcised. So it says, "He's halach lefonav v'heyeitamim. Go in my footsteps, and you will be complete." Milah is so great that not only on the person it completes you, but you complete the whole world. Not for the bris milah, they should never create a world. It says, if it wouldn't have been for the bris, now we're learning. Sometimes we say it's trading Merkadush, we say that, but here we say, if it's literally bris milah, I wouldn't have created the world. So it's not just you personally are complete, become whole, the entire world becomes whole. All the Zachid Moshe Rabbeinu did, didn't stand in his good stead. Now, what exactly was Kol Zachish Asa Moshe Rabbeinu? The only Zachish that we really know was that he saved that Yid from the Mitzri in the Torah. It's the only thing we know prior to this to this event. And maybe that's exactly what it is. Maybe that's the Zachish, saving a Yid's life, one Yid's life. Not saving Klal Yisrael, saving one Yid's life already is Kol Zachish. Did not stand him in good stead. When he sort of delayed and he tarried when it came to Bris Milah. Now it says the pasuk, "Vayiv Gisheyu Hashem." Hashem met him. He wanted to kill him because he did a malah. Omar Rabbi Yaisi Chas v'Sholom Shemoshe Rabbeinu Nismashal Milah. You think he delayed it? And this is what he said. Emel, I will go malah. The eight say, if I malah my child now, before we make the trip, sakani. It's a sakani. Never said, but on the third day, and they were in pain. So we see that what? It's mamash sakana. This is by Shechem. So Emil, the Eshes Yom, should I circumcise and wait 3 days because it says take 3 days of pain. Dave should give me instructions to go to Mitzrayim. I can't wait even a day. No. So what did Moshe do wrong? Where did he tarry? The nation is asig b'molad. When he arrived, wherever he's supposed to arrive, before he modeled the child, he looked around. And it says, first thing they went to look at was a place to remain. And now Rashi here on top of the page, we'll just do this Rashi. It's a very interesting Rashi and causes a lot of strife. Nations asking Mount Chilas is Rashi, the top Rashi. But first he occupied himself with the hotel, then he malad. But asking the middle of first thing he should have done is malad his son. But that hotel that he was going to stay was next to Mitzrayim, was near Mitzrayim, and so it's no longer sakana. Because they're right next to Mitzrayim, his wife and kids can stay there. He can go to Mitzrayim, so therefore there's no sakana anymore. Because what's the chilek? Were you mala at home or in the hotel? You're still in the same problem. I'm gonna have to wait 3 days. So he said no, because right outside the outskirts of Mitzrayim, so they can stay here and go in. Ella ben Shmoniyam. That day was 8 days old. If he was 8 days old, then he had an all day to mala. The only reason why you mala early is these Magdala mitzvahs. So why was he threatened to be killed? Is there a mitzvah to mala in the morning? Sorry?
So they arrived in the morning.
Where does it say they arrived the last minute? There was a question of today, tomorrow. That would be a chiddush. And you can't mala at night. It seems from Rashi here, and this is very important, the big machlekes in the poskim. Is there actually a mitzvah to mala in the morning, or the mitzvah is the entire day? So it's easy to do in the morning. And there's a big case 150 years ago, the big machlekes of poskim. So it seems from this Rashi here, which even though they go through the Tshuva, they don't bring this Rashi. It seems from this Rashi here that since it was the 8th day, as soon as you can, you have to mala. It's a mitzvah. The only reason why a lot of people delay the bris to the afternoon is because there's another principle called Barabam Hadas Melech. And Barabam Hadas Melech maybe it gives grounds to delay it to later in the afternoon. But Rashi seems to, how does Rashi know he was 8 days old? In Pashtas, he was 8 days old in Midian when he had to Mala, and he delayed it for the day or two that it took him to get to Mitzrayim. So it seems to Rashi, and not only that, it says that why did he do the Mitzrayim? Because he didn't want to do the Mitzrayim, Midian, because he would have to wait 3 days. But if it wasn't, he was only 7 days old then. So others want to bring an item here, which is the famous machlekes in the Poskim. If you mala the baby when it's 6 days old, 5 days old, okay, you didn't do the mitzvah, but it comes day number 8, then the mitzvah automatically is you did the mitzvah, or do you have to mala on the 8th day? Or you have to be normal. From here, it seems from Rashi's version. So when he left Midian, he was not 8 days old. So when he arrived in Mitzrayim, he was 8 days. So he left Midian was 7, 6, 5, how long it took. So therefore, according to Rashi, it seems that he could have made a bris younger and it would have been good enough. But he didn't want to do it because of sakana. So this little Rashi have a number of interesting shilas. Okay.